Well, good morning, everyone. All of you here and all of you on Zoom. Have you got me like part of my head? Okay, I better straighten out my neck piece then. Okay, wonderful. Oh, it is just wonderful to be back. I love to come back here. It's a wonderful drive, and it's a little bit of a time warp because I remember so many things when we drive through town. And I want to thank Kathy for coming with me and her Subaru coming with me today because my transmission on my car was not very cooperative. So this just was divine order. She wanted to come, and so we took her car, and here we are. And the drive is just as beautiful as always. And Franklin is just charming as always. And it's great to see all of you. And this morning, we're going to talk about prayer. And as usual, I'm going to start out with something a little lighthearted. And I heard this story about a man who was praying to God. He said, God, would you answer a question for me? And God said, of course, my son, what would you like to know? And the man said, God, what is 1,000,000 years to you? And God said, it's just a second. And the man says, I guess I understand, but then what is $1,000,000? And God said, $1,000,000 is just a penny. So the man thought for a little while and he prayed a little bit more. And then he looked at God and he said, God, could I please have a penny? And God said, of course, my son, just a second. Now you. So I thought this was a nice intro to kind of wrap our mind around prayer. And Bill already, there you are, did a lovely introduction where you noticed yourself that just being out in nature is a prayer itself. Now, most of us, or many of us, were raised with a very structured religious upbringing. We went to the church, we did the same prayers, we had the same rituals, and it was almost habit. And many, many churches and cathedrals were constructed just to give common folks actually a place to pray, but also to raise more money to build more cathedrals, right? So if you followed that structure, there was a bit of a reward system. And prayers that involved personal requests were frowned upon when I grew up. That just wasn't good. And then they were cleansing rituals such as confession, repentance, and more prayers involved to get back into God's good graces. So to me, when I was little, I always felt it was like a cosmic vending machine. You put this in, you get that out, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. So it was kind of more of a ritual than an actual praying or talking to God from who you really are, from your real self. Now, in the last several decades, we have become much more aware, especially in the New Thought belief system, that we have learned that it's okay to ask for blessings for ourselves, to pray for ourselves. And we have also seen that it causes a positive ripple effect if we follow that system now. And as of late in the news, we've heard about sports celebrities and other celebrities that have talked about being so stressed and they're having so many requests in their lives to perform, that they have now put a stop to it and said, I'm going to take care of my health. I am going to be selfish and make sure that I am all right. Now, we all know that the airlines knew this decades ago, because when we go on a trip, what happens every time they tell you, now you be sure if we have turbulence and if the masks come down, you put that mask on yourself first, so then you can help anybody else. But you take care of yourself first. Put it on yourself first. Now, I taught for many years at Southwestern Community College here when it was still next to the courthouse. It's now the jail. We just drove by there and it has barbed wire all around it. And that was a sort of a trip back for me. But anyway, I taught adults there for 17 years. And one of the things that happened was that it was extremely important to help them with their lives, their self-confidence, and to improve their self-care, because a lot of, especially the younger women, were just taking care of their families, and they totally thought that it was wrong, that they had no right to do anything for themselves. So we had already started with the educational part, but then as I had a little time to do one-on-one with them, I always drove home the point that your cup cannot run over unless it's full. And that was a great revelation to many of them. That was a new one. And once they actually did the baby steps to go along with that and to take care of themselves, whatever that looks like, and that's different for each individual, that it really improved their lives, and it just made a difference. So it's okay to make sure every day that our cup is full. In the 17th chapter of John, Jesus first prayed for himself. I was happy to find that, actually. And then his apostles, and then for all who would accept salvation through him. So it's right in the Bible. And of course, we know Jesus was not selfish. So right here is our example that he prayed for himself first. It is all right to pray for ourselves because it puts you in a positive mental state. And when you're in a positive mental state, your family is better taken care of, you're happier, your lives are more harmonious, and also you can be more prosperous. And what's better than to be prosperous and be able to give away and to share? Now, if you're depressed or drained, you're really of no fun to be around. And I know there are medical reasons and there are serious reasons for being depressed and being sad, and that then needs another medical approach. However, just to be moping, we can try to be much happier and to change our mind. And it really has an effect not only on ourselves, but also on the people around us. So how do we do that? We need to come back to our core knowledge that we are all perfect children of God, and our higher power experiences and manifests through each one of us. So we deserve the very best. And it is such a blessing to know that. It's a blessing, I think, to me, it amazes me every day. We have rights because we are children of God. And did you ever notice that successful people, they're self-assured and they ask for what they want? And in prayer, you can ask and you will be given. That's another promise. that you can find in the Bible, if you so desired to refer to the Bible. We know that God made the promise that you can ask and that you shall receive. Now, because the power of God is within us, and by constant communication with our higher power, we can align with our highest good. Bill was quoting Charles Fillmore a little while ago, and I found a perfect passage from Myrtle Fillmore, which is when you say the co-founders, it's Myrtle and Charles. So, and in the Healing Letters, Myrtle has a wonderful way of telling us what's the best approach to prayer. She says it much better than I ever could. Where would we send our prayers if we were to pray? We should direct them in our minds and hearts and affairs. We commune with God mind within our own consciousness. Prayer is an exercise to change our thought habits and our living habits, that we may set up a new and better activity in accord with the divine law, rather than the suggestions we have received from various outer sources. We are to cease worrying and being anxious. We are to concentrate all of our attention upon the truth of God and the truth of our own being, upon the very things we would see taking place in our lives. We cannot do this so long we have negative thoughts in our hearts. As we pray, the word of life is going into us, breaking up old beliefs, and life as God has planned it is taking a hold of our subconscious, and the results will take care of themselves. Wow. What is she saying? She's saying to go ahead and through our thought consciousness and feelings, we can directly direct our higher power to what our dream is for our lives and what we want. And it's not necessary to filter our words or to listen to any of those various outer sources. Robert Fulghum wrote a really nice little book that I often turn to for inspiration, and it's called Words I Wish I Wrote. And in the book, Robert wrote a great little passage about a man he met in Central Park on a bench, an ordinary, average looking man. For about 1 hour each morning, he sat saying something to himself. So Robert asked him one morning if he was all right. And the man said, I'm praying. Not an ordinary prayer, but praying the alphabet. Just reciting the alphabet for 1 hour each morning, leaving it to the Almighty to arrange the letters into the proper words for a proper prayer. What was missing in words, he made up in fervor. The man figured God could handle it and would understand his prayer. What a beautiful story. God understands our thoughts and our needs before we are truly aware of them. Another talented writer, Neil Donald Walsh, wrote a series of fascinating books, Conversations with God. I know some of you are familiar with that series. Excuse me. Neil received the message that the highest thought always contains joy. The clearest thoughts are those which contain truth, and the grandest feeling is that which we call love. We have all those feelings of joy and love quite often, and we are usually truthful with ourselves in our thoughts, in our mind, right? We don't need to lie to ourselves when we're just thinking we're pretty truthful. So Conversations with God books are a great manual for how we can intentionally communicate with God every day. When we pray, let's switch words to thoughts and feelings. Try it. It also helps control our minds and possibly change our perspective in certain situations to keep us from doing something really negative. It's like something you tell yourself, sometimes you tell yourself, just think about it, there's a better way. And once we share those thoughts and feelings and send them out to the universe, then we become open to new thoughts, new inspiration, and new ideas. You don't always get what you ask for, but what you get is what you create. Creation follows uh, creation follows thought, which follows perception, and then it and then reality. I have a personal example. I hope you don't mind. I thought about the business that I wanted to create when I retired after 17 years here with the college. And I perceived every detail in my mind. And I asked God exactly for what I wanted. I jumped in with both feet. And when I moved from here to Asheville, and everything came to pass, except there's one exception. There was a much better way than what I asked for, because I had forgotten, or I wasn't aware of, the power of the internet. So now there's the World Wide Web, and that turned out to be quite a blessing for my business. And uh, God knew what was best for me. I presented the desire, the plan, and the perfect outcome. And it manifested with something better than what I anticipated or what I asked for. So that's just a personal example. But if you think about it, you probably have examples like that in your own life where actually it was something better that came to you. Before I go to sleep at night, I release my thoughts and challenges, and I affirm divine guidance. And often the obvious presents itself by morning. There's always there when I wake up, and it's usually a feeling of peace. And I always have a thought of gratitude for the new day. And to start my day, this is my personal favorite affirmation, and it works great. I do all things easily, perfectly, on time, and in order. And then my plans for that day usually then are coming to pass in a structured and accomplished way. It really works. Now, when I work during the day, I love to listen to movies and documentaries. And before COVID, David and I was a special treat to go to the movies. And one of our favorite movies was The Two Popes. Anybody see that? Yeah, many of you did. Okay. There's a conversation between Cardinal Bergoglio of Argentina and Pope Benedict of Germany. They're sitting in the garden of Castel Gandolfo, the summer residence of the Pope, and they're smoking. One smoking a pipe and one is smoking a cigar. And the Cardinal asked the Pope, "Is it permitted to pray while smoking, Your Highness?" And the Pope answered, "No, that's the wrong question, Bergolino. The question should be, is it permitted to pray while smoking?" Think about that. And that thought just, that just blew me away, and I wrote it down, because it just means that no matter what you do, when you're doing it, that any thought that you have, even while enjoying a cigar, can be a wonderful prayer. Any thought can be a prayer at any time, as Bill was pointing out when he walked through the woods. Now, driving is a great opportunity to talk to God. Kathy and I were commenting on the beauty of the mountains, and it was very foggy in parts of the drive, and then you can see the fog and the clouds moving in the mountains, and it makes the to me it makes the mountains look as if they actually have some movement to them, and it just causes all kinds of wonderful thoughts in my head. And so we see blessings, we also see challenges. You see things along the way that make you uncomfortable or that you may not like. And I used to ruminate a lot when I was driving, and now I know that what I was doing actually was a form of prayer. You pray while you ruminate if you like what you see or not. So if we're aware of that, that's a wonderful blessing, because whatever thought comes to you, you, you can be assured you are praying. God knows what you're thinking. In Corinthians, God says, as soon as you start communicating with me about any matter, your thoughts will gain traction and you can move on to more important things. Communicate with me continually, and I will put my thoughts into your mind. That's a powerful message. But we also have to remember that it's not God's job to grant our wishes all the time. Since God needs nothing, he or she has no criteria by which he would decide whether you should or not receive something in particular that you're asking for. It's not God's decision. Our communication, then, our thoughts and communication go back to our perception, our thoughts and feelings on how to align ourselves with our highest good, to avoid any hiccups, even in our thought process. And that means confirming that negativity or any negative events have any power over us, because they don't. We can change our thinking and our perception. And there's good in challenging situations. We all know that too. There's always something good that comes out of it, and a blessing in whatever transpires. And one perfect prayer for all of us at any time is to say thank you. Thank you is a great prayer that you can say anywhere without much thought, without much of anything, and you can thank the universe for a positive outcome before making a phone call, before looking for a parking spot, before looking for coffee early in the morning, and during a beautiful drive, for safe transportation. Thank you, little Subaru, and for any blessing during the day. And thank all of you for being here this morning. You are a blessing to one another and to me. And thank you, folks who are watching on Zoom. And I want to finish with a section from the prayer in the prophet. Khalil Gibran was from Lebanon. He was considered a prophet. And this was written about 1913, and I thought it was very befitting for our thoughts that we were sharing here today. So I'd like you to be very, very comfortable, wiggle a little bit in your chair and be comfortable. Put your palms up, and let's take a deep breath. The prophet says, I cannot teach you how to pray in words. God listens not to your words, save when he himself utters them through your lips. And I cannot teach you the prayer of the seas and the forests and the mountains. But you who are born of the mountains and the forests and the seas can find their prayer in your heart. And if you listen in the stillness of the night, you shall hear them saying in silence, Our God, who art our winged selves, it is thy will in us that will us. And so it is.